So Jason, we know you're a tennis fan. You keep doing that, and do you really? You had to be on a court right now?
Well, I feel this is where I feel most comfortable. So I'm pretty nervous about the crazy town hall, and I feel like if I put my athleisure wear on, it's nice, it's soft, it's comfortable. I can move,
Yeah.
and
You
I've got my
that's coming
comfort
in is
racket.
just about to leave, right? Because they're like, this is exceptionally boring.
I
I feel like if I can hold this and I can feel it, I get the texture, the smell. I got it just will help me relax if I get a little
That's
anxious today.
You've
I
probably
need-
got some unopened cans that you can pop and then sniff
Do you think
right
you can
as
maybe
they.
turn off your video altogether? Then you can relax, and we can relax.
yeah.
Um, so people are straggling in, which is great to see. And I think we're just gonna, I don't know, give it one more minute or 30 seconds
Yeah.
before we start with, this incredibly robust and rigid agenda that we've got for.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try putting headphones on.
Can I just say I went the opposite of you, Jason. I went to what is deeply uncomfortable for me, and that's I've got some books here, and I try to avoid them as much as possible. But for this, I wanted to actually look.
You want to look like you're literate.
Yeah, like
Even though you're
I'm
not.
some kind of erudite podcast host or something.
Our listeners know better. Why don't we get started? So let me just start. I'm a share, by the way, for folks who maybe are trying to put a face to a voice. And Rob, why don't you say hello?
Hello, I'm Rob.
Jason.
Good to sort of pretend see everybody.
And I just want to take a quick second and thank you all. The fact that you are here and joining us means that you are either among our most dedicated listeners, or you are among our craziest listeners, or maybe a combination. What do you guys think? I'm thinking the combination. But it's wonderful. We really appreciate the support. This is our little way of spending some time with folks, since we can't actually get to spend time with you in the real world. And to thank you for supporting the podcast, supporting our work. And I just want to let you know, we do have like a 30-minute segment or so towards the end where you can actually ask us questions or insult us directly if you'd like. I know you've been holding on to that for a long time. So there's your chance. Rob, I'm going to turn it to you.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, I just want to echo real briefly. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's great to have you here. And I'm excited to talk to you two. It's been a week or so since we recorded. So looking forward to this. I want to start us off with just a brief intro to our season 3 is about the hidden drivers that are pushing us into the sustainability crisis. And it's a little bit of a tradition for us to follow the news and look at where some recent things that have happened fit in with our themes. And so in prep for this, I asked each of us to find something that's happened in current events. And I want to kick us off with one I found. Now, I don't think, Sharon, Jason, you know that I'm not a great fan of rap, but a little bit. I actually listen to rap every so often. And
is that because of your daughters?
Yeah, daughters, and I actually just like it. It's very high energy, and it's kind of a change of pace from my 3-chord rock stuff that I grew up on and play on guitar and stuff. So there's an artist, a rap artist I had not heard of called Lil Uzi Vert. And
Uzi as in the machine gun?
I would assume so, yes. But he came into the news because of something he did to his face. He embedded a $24 million diamond, pink diamond, in his forehead. Got this thing embedded.
$24 million.
Yes, $24 million. So that's obviously odd enough
Why don't
in
we talk
itself,
about
but
that on our status episode? I mean,
yeah,
that's like the ultimate statement of status, right?
that's exactly where I was headed. We've already released an episode on status signaling and status seeking behavior. And I can't think of a more sort of in your face. Let me show a picture of it to you guys.
Oh,
But here's the problem. What comes next? People always have to up each other. So like, is somebody going to cut their head off and actually replace it with a diamond?
ouch.
Oh, gosh.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
actually in his head.
Yeah. So here was the crazy thing. There was a Rolling Stones article about it, and they interviewed the jeweler that did this for him, and they said, they were talking about the process of embedding it, and they said, well, it's as safe as any other piercing. That was a direct quote from the jeweler. I'm like, no, it's not. Like you're now a 24-hour target with your $24 million diamonds. Like somebody's going to come at you with a pry bar and just disembed that thing. So anyway, yeah, in our status signaling episode, I got to interview Sandra Goldmark, who wrote the book Fixation. It's all about changing our relationship to stuff. And maybe some of our listeners, our participants here today have had a chance to listen to that episode, but she's got a book called Fixation. And I am ready to try to get that over to Lil Uzi. And
What do you think? Do you think if like you got hit in the
that in your
forehead
head.
at about 100 miles per hour with a tennis ball, you think it would stay?
If you get that embedded, I'm going to hit you in the face with a tennis racket.
That's slightly bigger than the diamond that he put in.
If I hit it overhead, and they're at the net and I go right at them, I think there's a risk of that.
That could be. All right. Well, you're up, Jason. What did you find that we can relate to what we do on this podcast?
Well, what you guys have recently bought houses, how much do they cost? If you don't have to be exact or anything.
They cost a lot. Houses are expensive.
Yeah.
A few $100,000, right?
Yeah.
What about a virtual house on Mars? A Mars
right.
house.
Oh, on Mars?
The Mars house, yeah. So that sold. There was a virtual house that sold for $500,000, and it sucks. I actually looked at the video tour of it, and I'm not prepared like Rob. I was getting dressed, and so I didn't have time to prepare like Rob. But yeah, you could look it up. Virtual Mars house.
You're saying that it doesn't have enough bathrooms, like it actually sucks? I mean,
well, just the graphic quality is not that good. So, video games nowadays have more detailed, interesting graphics than this stupid looking Mars house, which looks like some ultra modernist sort of thing with like just clean lines everywhere. There's no detail. And so it's like somebody did the simplest.
Actually paid real money.
$500,000.
And
the artist had some interview I listened to. It was very hard to deal with because basically she was saying, this is our future. We're going to live in these virtual worlds. It's going to happen faster than anyone can imagine. And right now, actually, there are real estate agents
Shut up.
who are selling virtual space.
Shut up.
Yeah. So the whole planet's been mapped out virtually, like the Earth. And so what you can do is you can take your virtual house and plop it on a virtual property, and you can pay for that. And then
I'm on top of this game. I've been stockpiling virtual food for months now, so I'm ahead of the game here.
Wait, so you can actually decide, like, I want to buy a virtual house, and I'm going to put it like right downtown Manhattan.
I'm
going to put it in the middle of Park, of Central Park.
Yeah, totally. Or you could say like, Ted Turner's got a ranch in Montana, and I'm gonna go plop my house where his house is. If we only had
this like 500 years ago, we could have saved indigenous people a lot of pain and suffering, right? We could have just directed all that colonial energy of the Europeans into like a virtual
Yeah, if
landscape.
Minecraft were around back then, it would have been.
I'm,
think
I'm
that-
all for this if this keeps us from actually trying to go to Mars.
Yeah.
You know, if people just decide, yeah, this is my experience of Mars.
I want to see like a virtual real estate, the credentialing system is for that, for a virtual real estate agent. That's cool.
Well, I'm gonna bring it
Cher,
back to
what do you
reality.
got?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back to reality, which is weird, like, because I almost feel like this is a joke. I mean, and this is probably, I mean, I would guess that most of the people who are tuning in have heard about this, you know, container ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal. And it was like, the irony of it is just it's too rich. It's almost like a bad joke or like a bad script. Do you know what I mean? This container ship with, I'm not even going to talk about the things that they, you know, that have come out in terms of what it's transporting, right? But it's one of the biggest container ships in the world, gets stuck sideways in the Suez Canal, you know, like stops, you know, traffic and global, you know, transport of things. It's, could we have asked for like a more obvious signal of everything that's wrong with this sort of globalized, you know, economy that we have?
Yeah.
You know, in the Suez Canal, which was like such a product of imperial, you know, pursuits of profit. And
Well, you know what it reminded me of was as soon as they cleared it, as soon as they dug out the ship and refloated it, it was kind of like this whole big, okay, let's get back to normal.
Exactly.
Just like the episode we recorded last season, at the end of last season, about, you know, being careful about not taking that attitude with COVID, this whole like, oh, can't wait till everyone's vaccinated and we just go back to normal or whatever. And it has that same flavor, you know, so yeah, I didn't read what you're talking about, Cher, with what's on the ship, but assuming it's rubber doggy do and, you know, essential items like that.
very essential.
Can't wait to get back to normal and float, you know, a zillion more tons of that through the man-made canal.
Because what's normal is something that can carry, what, 22,000 cars on it or whatever it is, you know, like that's normal.
Yeah.
How does it compare to the Panama Canal? You know, like Panama Canal seems more impressive. Like it's got locks and, you know, gets lifted and everything. And how many people died building the Panama Canal?
It's true, because there wasn't
Canal?
as many diseases, you know, for the Suez. I don't think, I mean, I'm sure workers died dredging the Suez Canal, but nothing like the Panama.
The Panama was worse, probably.
Yeah. Well, and that came with, I think we kind of staged a coup there in order to do the canal. I don't know if we'd, you know, decided to colonize, you know, that area in Egypt and such in order to build a canal. That was maybe a byproduct. But
are any of you folks having like supply chain issues? Is there something you're waiting for you haven't been able to get?
My case of rubber dog poop has not arrived, and I'm really upset about that.
Well, you guys know David Blittersdorf. David is on the board of Post Carbon, and he has started a whole bunch of renewable energy companies, and he was just saying that the supply chain is really actually messed up for renewables pretty badly.
Yeah, and tractors. He was saying like a lot of like this Kubota dealer can't get any Kubota equipment.
Right.
Yeah.
Tennis balls seem to be showing up just fine. Just want to let y'all know. I'm not worried about that right now. But apparently skis and stuff, like skis were really short supply, and bicycles.
Bicycles,
yeah.
And if you want to delve more into the whole global trade issue, we did an episode on that towards the beginning of last season and talked a lot about container ships and actually the history of that and how that changed, you know, the kind of standardization of the shipping container changed everything. And so, yeah.
You know what's amazing to me when you bring that up is like, I can barely remember the shows, like a show like that. If I were to hear it, I'd be like, oh, wow, we talked about that. We talked about that. Does that happen to you guys, or I'm just older than you two?
You are older than us.
It happens. In fact, we've got an edit job coming up for Melody where I just repeated the hell out of myself.
Right.
And that's this season. So, you know,
yeah,
like
people stick with us for another 10 years or so. The whole thing will just be a repeat.
right.
You know, my wife doesn't listen to this, so this is how I can say this, but
that's one of the things about being married is you have to listen to the same stories over and over again, don't you? Like they've got the same stories from childhood.
You've already told me this story, okay?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that's the risk we have in the show too, right? Is that we're going to come up with the same stories.
That's the problem of living as long as we live now.
Mm-hmm.
Same old stories.
All right, I'm not going to talk about the opposite of living as long as we live. Let's turn
Logan's
to
Run was a great movie.
Let's turn to our first poll. All right.
All right.
This is hopefully this works out where all of our participants here you can learn something a little more. By the way,
how can they leave us? Can they put something in the Q&A or can they chat us or what?
Yeah.
I want to know that people are alive. In fact, I would love it if people typed in where in the world they are. Don't say you're on Mars, okay, in a virtual house. So I guess use the Q&A.
Yeah, you can use the Q&A. We've got an I'm alive from Deb. That's good. I'm going to load up our first poll of the day here. So let's see. I hit the launch button. This is the Know Your Hosts. So our first question here is, which host is a deadhead or maybe just a 60s wannabe, having followed the Grateful Dead and attended 60, that's right, 60 concerts?
Now we can't, I see this note here that says we can't vote.
Yeah, you're not allowed.
Okay.
Which is not fair because we were just talking about our memories, right?
Yeah.
And we might not remember.
God, am I a deadhead? I think.
Okay, and then the second question here is, which host rode a tandem bike nearly 5,000 miles one summer, crossing North America from Washington to Maine?
I think we've covered this on one of the shows.
It's possible. We'll see. And then third is my favorite question, which is, which nausea-susceptible host once vomited out the window of a small airplane while trying to take aerial photos of the landscape?
These are good. Where'd you come up with these?
There isn't none of the above option, I've noticed.
Yes, these are real things that actually involve one of us. Maybe it's the same person every time.
That's right. It's true. You didn't say that. Yeah. No, this is interesting.
Okay, we'll give about another 20, 30 seconds or so. Let people make their selections. Yeah, I don't know. Trying to reveal stuff like this might make us even worse off. You know, people want to hang out in the podcast even less. Okay, let's see. I am going to, looks like voting is slowing down. So I'm going to end this poll and well, I'll just leave it open and as I reveal the answer. So, or as we reveal them. So go ahead. Will the real deadhead please stand up? Come on. So I love it when the audience gets it totally wrong. Only 15%.
Can we see the answers?
Yeah. What did you
yeah,
share?
maybe when I hit the end polling, you can see them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there it is. So the answer was Jason to our audience, but the real answer is a share.
Oh, that's gonna really upset a share.
It doesn't upset me.
Oh, well, because I make fun of you for being a deadhead.
People, I have to say, people are often very surprised to find this out.
Where do I see the results?
Yeah, I can't see the poll either.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it just comes down to me not knowing what I'm doing here.
It was pretty close between me and Rob, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm the last. That's funny.
Yeah, I know a couple of Grateful Dead songs. Sherry, it seems like every time we talk about music, that's where your mind goes with 60 concerts.
Yeah, and well, I talk about Mark Knopfler a lot too. But
it doesn't even seem like you were old enough to be doing that. What were you, like 6 years old going to concerts?
No, it's just I lived in the Bay Area, and they're from the Bay Area, so they did a lot of shows there, and they would do a run of 3 shows at a time in a venue. I would go to all 3. Right? That was the tradition.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I went to one Grateful Dead show with my dad.
Wow.
Oakland
You
Coliseum.
know, my very first concert was
Hmm.
Air Supply.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's the best.
I'm So Lost Without You. Was that one of those songs?
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
I'm all out of love.
Oh, why did I
So
do that?
lost
Sorry, Rob.
without you.
I was gonna say I can't believe, Jason, you didn't start belting out some Air Supply song.
Well, I don't feel like my voice is warmed up right now. I'm a little
Yeah.
froggy, so I'm afraid to kind of hit the highs.
Okay, let's see these others. All right.
Okay, so the second one, the
They
tandem
got
bike
right.
adventure, they got that right. That was
Yeah.
me. Did that kind of after my first run of jobs after college. I was already so burned out by the crappy capitalist system that I had to just drop out for a while and ride a bike. So I just saved up money and did that trip.
Cool. Amazing. Life changing, affirming, whatever.
Now, again,
I'm offended.
yeah,
Yeah,
now
this
you
is-
Now I'm offended.
I feel pretty good. Everyone knows that I wouldn't vomit out of a plane, but
Yeah.
no, this was.
That's me.
I'm sorry to keep talking, but Jason one day sent me photos of the side of the airplane,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Look what I made." You know?
Yeah. Me and small planes don't get along. I've had issues with boats as well.
Yeah, we recently went boogie boarding at the
Yes.
Oregon coast, and Jason was getting a little
Oh,
green just
That's awful.
from
I
that.
know.
So.
Yeah, but it was it's weird because you're I don't know, where are you going? You're like 120 miles an hour or something like that, where you're flying in these things, and you can
Ooh,
pop the
faster, no?
you can pop the windows open just a little bit, right? And they kind of like a goomph, and then it's just air's rushing in, it's super loud. So I'm gonna heave.
Oh, you had just a little crack to work
I
with.
just had this little crack. So I'm just like pressed. I'm just like as tight as I can.
Okay.
Sorry. God, it was awful. Felt better afterwards though.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep the podcast studio as calm and as little
and
shakiness
if we go
as
on the
possible.
seas, we'll be doing a cruise ship. I think we should do a Crazy Town cruise at some point. Invite everyone to get on a cruise ship with us. Those are
What would
big.
that even be?
pretty
We'd
steady.
have to build our own dugout canoe or something.
No, I mean, with the way the economy is going to wind up, I mean, we'll be able
We
to
could
rent
get
out
a
one of those
cheap
cruise
cruise,
ships
a
easy.
cheap cruise ship.
Yeah,
Oh my God, they're just like for
we won't be able
scrap
to
right
find the bunker fuel, but so maybe we'll just stay in port.
now. Okay.
It'll be fun.
Okay. Well, that's our first poll. All right. We'll have another poll coming up here.
I gotta say,
in a little
people,
while.
you got to up your game. You got 1 out of 3 right here.
Okay, I want to turn us to a little bit of insider info on the show. This will be a little bit about season 3, a little bit about what we've got planned for next year in season 4. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the music that we've got embedded in our episodes. So let's start with season 3. As I said at the top, we are trying to explore some hidden drivers that have led us into Crazy Town. And so I have a question for Asher and Jason, and I've thought a little bit about this too, but I wanted to ask, what of the topics we've covered this season, what got you thinking, or what piqued your interest maybe a little bit more? And I can start. One thing that really struck me is we had talked about doing an episode on self-domestication, and that's the episode actually that just came out. And Jason, I think you had proposed that topic, and I thought, wow, cool, self-domestication. That must be the way that humans have sort of unwilded ourselves, how we sit around in houses and we wall ourselves off from nature. And it really wasn't about that at all. So I had this total misconception. What it was really about was how our ability to cooperate has and basically be friendly towards one another is kind of turned into this dual-edged sword where, in one sense, yeah, that helps us not be violent towards each other, but it also helps us outcompete every single, every other animal plant ecosystem on the planet. So
Mhm.
it was a really cool learning opportunity for me. As you all know, Jason is our resident evolutionary biologist. So it's pretty cool when you bring a topic like that I just didn't know anything about. So what about you guys? What's something that came up that's this season particularly that struck you in Crazy Town?
I didn't know anything about terror management theory really. So that was pretty fascinating. That one came out too. We
Yeah.
should probably talk about one that hasn't come out yet to give people a little bit like a reason to stick around. But wow, that was just blew my mind. The experiments and stuff.
Yeah,
Just
we're
Yeah,
definitely all
I agree.
three fascinated with the whole psychology experiments and the cleverness behind them, and then the results that you get.
Yeah.
The terror management theory, the idea that basically fear of your impending death, and it's coming. When you get reminded of that, it can make you act out in pretty terrible ways that you really had no idea that you were doing.
Mm.
Yeah, I had the same. I had the same reaction because I was familiar with terror management theory, but I wasn't. I wasn't familiar with these studies that were done and the implications in terms of people holding on to like certain cultural beliefs and how they would double down because of
Yeah.
that on social structures, not just like I'm scared of dying. Do you know what I mean? So I'm
No.
going to act in these certain ways, but collectively fascinating and deeply troubling.
Yeah.
I think there are lots of implications, which is probably probably my biggest takeaway so far with the season. And we've talked about doing a final episode, which will be, I think, quite a challenge for us looking at this. And that is the intersection of a lot of these hidden drivers, So like with that, for example, thinking about terror management and how that leads people to really hold on tightly to these cultural constructs, right? How well that ties in with what we see with, and this is an upcoming episode on conspiracy theories,
Mm.
because there's so much tribalism that happens with that, and kind of group dynamics, in-group and out-group dynamics. So you combine those two things, and there are a whole bunch of these other things, the status seeking, the cognitive biases, and like you start pulling all those things together and you're like, no shit, we're in Crazy Town. Of course we are.
What was QAnon's take on the Suez Canal blockage? Anyone know?
I don't know. Probably that it's a false flag operation. There is no Suez Canal or a cruise or a container ship.
I bet they thought they was loaded with children or something like that.
Oh, good point.
I'm
The
guessing.
canal works perfectly on a flat Earth. That's the only reason you can have canals.
That's right.
So, there's obviously a lot of connections to make in the episodes that are coming up. One of the things that I also wanted to point out is, I'm sure listeners are aware, we're weaving interviews into these episodes, and that's been pretty exciting too. I had a really nice interview with Kathleen Dean Moore, the environmental philosopher and writer, and I've known her for a few years now, and she's awesome. And so she's going to be coming up in an episode on the way, kind of more what I was talking about, my conception of self-domestication was, but it's this disconnection from nature that our culture seems to prize.
That seems to be a common like theme of this season. Actually, ends up being a lot of what we talk about is like restore nature, get personally reconnected to it. It's often one of the do the opposites. We can kind of go that direction.
Yeah. Let me turn real quick to season 4. There's not a ton to talk about here, but I do want to mention we've got a volunteer working with us named Alana Zuber, and we had come up with this idea of, could we find watershed moments in history that started some sort of a landslide toward Crazy Town? So a moment in history maybe that you could tie into the topics of things like colonialization or racism or the rise of neoliberalism or consumerism. And so it's a kind of a research project at this point, trying to find what are the origins of consumerism? Is there obviously it's a lot of forces and a lot of events, but, sort of like if you were talking about the civil rights movement, a lot of people would point to Rosa Parks' refusal to give up the seat on the bus as a pivotal moment that helped start the landslide of the civil rights movement. And so we're seeking those out, and it's going pretty well. I get to meet with Alana every so often, and we go over ideas, and Asher and Jason have been kind of pointing out some possibilities. So we're messing around pretty heavily with that idea, and I think that's going to be what we do. So I'm excited.
I don't know if we talked about this yet, but one I think that just came up was the invention of the container, shipping
right.
container.
Yeah.
If you look at that, it had a profound impact on globalization.
I think 99% Invisible or some show like that on Design or whatever had an episode on that, on the shipping container. So maybe just replay that one or something like that. They'll play one of ours, right? We do a little trade like that. And
I like trying to find some related podcasts. Okay, I'm going to turn us quickly to the music side of things. I don't know that we've really ever discussed with anybody the origins of our music. Let me just play a real quick snippet here. I think this will work if I share my sound.
I'm waiting. Oh, it's coming.
Okay.
I hear it.
That work?
Yeah,
It's
we
coming.
heard it.
Okay, cool. So that was Way Huge by the Midnight Shipwrecks. We also have another.
No, we didn't hear that.
Oh, you didn't hear that?
We didn't hear that, no.
Crap. Okay, hang on. Let me see. Try one more time. How about that?
Okay,
Why'd you
I heard
stop?
that.
Jason was grooving out.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, we could just keep that going for the rest of this. Maybe people would enjoy that more than our witless banter. But that's Way Huge by the band The Midnight Shipwrecks. And we actually have a nice little tie to them. So Jason, why don't you let our audience know about that?
So I was living in Willits, and
Willits, California.
Willits, California, gateway to the Redwoods, they call it. And I started this farm at this grammar school that my kids were going to, and we ended up getting a employee via Post Carbon Institute to work with me on that farm. His name was Chris Hansen, and he actually lived with our family for a couple years. And so then what happens is Chris moved up to Portland, and I end up moving to Corvallis, and then Chris ends up moving down to Corvallis.
And he moved in with you again, right?
No, this time no. But what he ends up farming though in the area, and I end up working with him on some of that stuff. And then he starts a band, and that band is Midnight Shipwrecks.
Yeah, and it's cool because they're sort of like a punk rock surfer band with an activist message. Like I know one of their tunes starts with a Greta Thunberg quote, so it's pretty fun. And we've also taken another of their songs. We've got way better transitions this season because of Melody working with us as the producer. And we've got a pretty cool bass riff from one of their songs. So yeah, I'm excited that our music is also kind of
all in the family
activist and wraps up with the themes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so speaking of producer Melody, we wanted to give our audience a chance to meet her and just give us a few minutes to chat with her and learn a little more. Hey, Melody.
Hey
There she
there.
is.
Boop.
Welcome,
Into existence.
welcome to Crazy Town. I was hoping that you could share a little bit about your story of kind of how you got into podcasting and how you came to be with us here in Crazy Town. And before you answer, let me just say thank you for taking some work off of my shoulders and for doing such
A
a
better
nice
job. Let's
with
be
the-
honest. Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
sound. Oh, I thought that goes without saying.
Well, thank you for having me. I've been really enjoying working with y'all. I started listening to podcasts because I had a 2.5-hour commute a day when I lived in Berlin. And
Oh.
yeah, I lived in Berlin for 5 years. I did my master's there and worked part-time at a sustainability institute and was making music on the side. So this past fall, I was looking for new volunteer opportunities and found Crazy Town, and ended up working on that ad for you guys. And it was so fun. I feel like we just kind of jived right away. And I was so happy when you offered to have me come on as an editor and producer for you guys.
Yeah, when we were talking about trying to find a producer after we did that work together, I was like, oh, I hope Melody will agree to be our producer. This would be really a good thing. So I was pretty psyched. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
And you're doing
Yeah,
this as a
having you
side
join us.
gig, right, Melody? So it's a bit of a labor of love too, right? Because
It
you're
is,
not
yeah.
busy otherwise.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, and we appreciate all the folks who contribute that help make the show possible, because it helps fund Melody, and so improving our programming. So
Yeah.
now you understand what
And
we're doing.
I think it even frees up time, like the whole idea of us doing interviews. I don't think
Yeah.
we'd be doing that this season if we didn't have you on board to help.
So I
So
want to ask our audience what they think of the interviews. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Just curious to get feedback on that if you have any.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Melody Asher had this question, and he's probably the answer. But who among the three of us is the most difficult to deal with in the editing booth?
I'm
Sorry.
sure you all think that it's the other two.
Yeah, it's not me.
No, actually,
know
I think
that.
it's me.
Yeah, I think all three of you. I think it's kind of even.
Yeah.
Oh,
be
she's so
honest.
diplomatic.
I
She
know.
went to
Yeah.
the
You can offend
diplomacy
us. This is your
school.
chance to offend us. There are
No,
witnesses.
I think I think it's the normal stuff, the ands, there's a little bit of stuttering sometimes. Just clean that stuff up. The one thing that all of you guys do, which is a little tricky, is that Rob runs the sound when you guys are going, and then when you get really excited and impassioned about something, your volume goes way up, and so there's some peaking that happens. That's across the board, all three of you guys. So, audience, I hope you forgive the enthusiasm. There's nothing I can do about that, but
I have
think
a
Quaaludes.
technological solution. We're all going to wear those dog cones from now on, so that we can't get into the microphone.
I'm sure
Yeah.
that'll sound great. That'll make it a lot easier. For Melody.
Yeah.
We've got these things to try to keep the pops out, I guess they are now. We've got this new
Yeah.
thing this year. That actually helps, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, now we can finally say peas, which we couldn't say like last season. No
Yeah.
peas.
Asher, you do love your peas.
I do. Yeah.
he's eating them for lunch today.
And my you-knows. I like to say a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I don't like listening to us very much, but it's been interesting to notice the certain mannerisms that we all have.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I when I was doing the editing, I was like, oh, I did not do that again, did I? Delete. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing though is the art of editing is to try to make it as if there's no editor at all. So, I really try to keep in your cadence, your even some of the ums and likes and buts
Right.
and so that the feeling of being in a conversation is still there.
Yeah, I think that's really important. In fact, I was reading some research about this, and that when those I don't know what they call the term, those but there's a term for those in language. And what they do is they provide space for the conversation to be processed. And they're kind of signaling like, I'm not done with this thought yet. I'm going to continue. So, but I'm giving space for processing. And it actually, if you cut all that stuff out, then it actually is harder for the listener to follow. So I thought that was kind of fascinating. It made me more forgiving of a share.
I do this all on purpose. I'm just trying to help people.
It's just for the listener.
Well, because my thoughts are so profound, and I know.
I'm completely scripted. I've written out every and that I utter during my.
Actually, what people don't realize is that what's the raw recording is about 3 hours long.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm not going to spend 3 hours with you guys. There's no way.
Yeah, I don't think I would still be doing this labor of love if it were 3 hours long.
I do think maybe we let people know this, that it often takes us about 3 hours though, when we get together to finish a show. And so
that's a pretty low ball estimate, I would say. Lately, it's been more like 5 to 6.
I don't think it's been that long, but it takes much, there's time to set up, and there's time for us to get together and kind of review the topic. And so our conversations our goal is to have them be somewhat free flowing, but we're also trying to hit certain points. And so we have to then, in some ways, outline what we're going to do. And that takes us a little while to do that. And then we have technical things and warm-ups and breaks. So we do we finish the main part. Yeah, we finish the main part, and then we have a little break, and then we'll do the opposite. We go outside, we walk around and vent.
What warm-ups do you guys do?
Well, we actually haven't been doing the vocal warm-up stuff, but I think, you have a background as a singer. I think we should get with you and figure out what we should be doing at the start of each episode to get the energy but we do try to get in the right, what I would say kind of, we're really trying to balance between analyzing something, being serious, but obviously being silly and joking. So we kind of try to get each other in a little bit of a comedic and good mood before we get going. I think that's pretty important.
And I think we've definitely, I'd like to think we've gotten better over the seasons as we've been doing this.
We've shifted to when we do our podcast. We used to do more like end of the day, and now we decide we like it better. We do earlier. So I think that's kind of interesting too.
And I think early on we focused more on our stupid humor,
right?
And I think we dialed that down a little bit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I want to just say another thanks, Melody, and glad that you get to meet some of our audience here. And thanks so much for your work on the season, and look forward to continuing that as we're only like 4 or 5 episodes in now. We got another 10 to go, and Melody
and we've never met Melody in person, right? Because this has all happened during the time of COVID, and then you're a different part of the country. So someday it would be cool if we could all just be in the same place someday, maybe.
Yeah.
Rob already invited me to your tiny house, so I might just pop in at some point.
Okay, cool. I'll send you the link.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Melody.
Thanks, guys.
See you later. Okay, let me quickly jump into our second poll, which actually we just referenced one of the questions there. So, gosh, how do I get to, there it is. Okay, I'm going to launch our random facts poll here.
Oh,
So attendees can now see these 3 questions. The first one is, in what order did the hosts immigrate to Oregon? Was Jason first? Was I first? Was Asher first? The second question is, how many of us crazy town workers are experimenting with tiny house living? And the third question is, what's the official mascot of Crazy Town? The honey badger, Pacific tree frog, howler monkey, or the dead hamster?
this is my favorite question. And you're watching right now, like responses come in? You've
Yeah,
got
I
like
can
what's this?
see.
This is called a poll that's like embedded in Zoom.
Yeah.
They have
Now,
all this sort of
People
stuff.
should know we are grading them at the end.
Oh,
Right? We can see everyone's individual answers, and we'll be sending you a letter grade at the end.
Yeah, you always wanted to be a high school teacher, didn't you, Asher?
Absolutely, yeah.
I actually, knowing you, I can't imagine how frazzled you'd be at the end of each day of.
We didn't. I think our last town hall we talked about the fact that I barely went to high school and barely graduated high school. So the idea that I would become a high school teacher would be pretty ironic.
My dad was a high school teacher, and it worked out pretty well for him. I went to the same high school he did. He was a teacher at, which I guess was okay.
You never had him as a teacher, did you?
No, I had him as a baseball coach though.
Right.
I should have played tennis though. Okay. I kind of feel like, I could have given up on baseball and played tennis. But anyway, I had a good time anyway.
Did you feel like you were obligated because your dad was the coach?
I kind of felt like that was I should do that,
I
But,
have to tell you this, Jason. So Deb put a comment in the Q&A. She said she lived in California, and every time we drove through Willits, we had to shout, "What you talking about, Willits?"
what's that? I
You
don't
don't
know.
know that reference?
That's
No.
a reference to the TV show Different Strokes with Gary Coleman.
What you talking about, Willis?
Okay.
I got
kinda
the
remember
joke,
that now.
Deb. I
Yeah,
got it.
well, that's right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
probably saw every episode of
Now,
that.
How
when
did
my
you spend-
oldest son was little, there was a woman that I worked with. Her name was Phyllis, and he heard me say, "What you talking about, Willis?" at one point, and he thought it was, "What you talking about, Phyllis?" So
Oh.
that's our tradition now in our family. What you talking about, Phyllis?
Okay, Phyllis. I'm going to end the polling and let's see what we got here. Okay, in what order did the hosts immigrate to
Oh,
Oregon?
can you show it? And it. And
Oh yeah, sorry. There's too many buttons to hit.
There
here.
you go.
It is. Well, congratulations, audience. You got
Whoa.
it right. It was
That's
me,
pretty good.
Jason, Asher. It was actually me and Jason were very close. In fact, I met Jason on my back porch when he moved to Corvallis, probably just a few months while you were scoping the town.
Yes.
Just a few months after I had gotten settled in my intentional community. You guys were actually kind of interested in the co-housing community as well.
Yes. My buddy was Jeremy, and then Jeremy was your buddy. So,
Yeah,
and then they were like, "Oh, Cassie," and they started talking about you. I was like, "I know Cassie."
yeah,
So that was cool.
yeah.
You gotta explain what Cassie is.
Yeah, I was at the time running a nonprofit that was all about trying to promote the steady state economy. So yeah, Jason was aware of our work. So yeah, it was really
It's
fun.
like somebody's heard of it.
Yeah, and then Asher, we just convinced you to come, right? We were like, "This is a great place. You got to get up here."
I have this distinct memory of talking with Jason, who I obviously knew from long before. And Rob, you and I met before as well.
Yep.
I'd come to Portland, I think for an event that Richard Heinberg was.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
speaking up at the Pacific Northwest College of Art for part of that series.
Yeah. And so I think we met there, Rob. But no, my family was considering leaving Northern California and moving up to Willamette Valley. We'd been studying climate maps, and trying to find a place that had good soil and, land for food production and, look like from the climate models might might be, relatively stable. And so we're looking sort of around different places in the Willamette Valley. And Jason, I remember I don't know if you showed me the train tracks, but you're like, we got train running through town, and we got a river, so we could transport things. I was like, a really good point. So I moved to Corvallis despite the fact that you guys were here.
Yeah.
It was like,
that
it
was a
definitely a
negative.
con
And
cone.
it's only a couple out of 60,000,
Yeah.
you won't even have to see us necessarily.
That's
you
right.
know, Just go.
And I definitely moved to a different part of town. So I can
Yeah,
have a
you know,
distance.
I'll go to the Peacock. You'll go to Squirrels. We'll kind of different bars.
Meet in the middle. Meet
Yeah.
in the middle of the street. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next question was how many of us Crazy Town workers are experimenting with
It's a
tiny house living?
solid majority.
Yeah,
Wow.
and that is
Yeah.
not the correct answer. So Jason's got, as you kind of were referencing when talking with Melody, you've got a tiny house out at the farm that you kind of set up as a place where guest workers and family and friends could come and stay. I am experimenting with one. I moved out of Corvallis and I'm mostly living in Portland, but I occasionally come back and stay in Corvallis at a tiny house that's on a friend's property across the street from the co-housing intentional community where I used to live. And kind of in a trick question, I guess we could say 3 of us are actually experimenting because Melody's got sort of a converted bus office tiny house setup going on. So
And I decided to go the opposite because I like, we talk about do the opposite, and I decided I should do that. So I'm in the process of building a 12,000 square foot house right now.
Nice.
yeah, that's great.
And I'm just going to move myself in. It's just a way of sort of getting away from the family since we're all stuck together with.
Well,
with
one of the
the pandemic.
closets could be your tiny house.
Right.
I think
Exactly.
someone needs to come up with a virtual house that is a mimic of that mansion in California and what's it called?
Which mansion?
The one that's crazy that has all the dead ends and stuff that's near the Century movie
Oh
theaters.
yeah,
in
the
San
woman
Jose.
that was like kept building different parts
Yeah.
onto her house.
Yes.
Yeah, I
That
can't
would be
remember
a
what that was
cool
called.
one. The Winchester Mystery House.
There you go. You
Uh,
got it.
You and your California insider knowledge, you guys.
Yeah, that would be a
got me on
cool
that.
virtual house.
So hey, the next one, that means 5 people have actually listened to the podcast.
Yeah,
That's
official
great.
mascot of Crazy
the-
Town.
The other 7 of you clearly not listening to the podcast.
Yeah, we've got I've touched our mascot a couple times. It's a little tree frog that lives in the greenhouse on some plants that you've got in there, Jason, and cute little critters, sometimes loud enough to be heard. And we got to kind of quiet them down. But
I love
And
that
it
3
is
people
so-
thought it was a dead hamster.
well,
That's probably what I would guess too.
that's our
knowing us.
second choice.
I
It
really like
is
the
so
howler
loud at
monkey.
night.
I had a howler monkey throw feces at my car. In
Oh, that's cool.
Rica.
Yeah.
It's not a Crazy Town get together if feces
Flying
will
feces.
come up in some way or
Flying
another.
feces.
Right. Okay, that's the end of our polling. I want to turn it to Q&A time. Please, if you have questions, drop them into the Q&A and we'll try to tackle those as best we can. We've got one in here that says, why don't you focus on overshoot, as that is our primary predicament? I kind of have an answer, which I don't know, might not be the most satisfying, but I feel like we do focus on overshoot. It's sort of like Crazy Town is almost a synonym for overshoot, and the whole notion of too many people consuming too much stuff and our ecosystems are breaking down as a result, and we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. I think that's sort of like the thread that runs throughout all of our shows. And we occasionally hit it very specifically. I know, it's probably going to season 1 now, but you actually reread Overshoot by William Catton, right, Jason? And incorporated that into that episode about, I'm trying to remember it's cargo cults was
Yes,
the
yes, that was a fun one. And because he had a chapter that talks about cargo cults, and kind of the idea was that really that's what our current civilization is, like a cargo cult. And we like the Suez Canal blockage, right? Freaking out about that cargo couldn't move.
Yeah.
Catton's got another book that came out, I don't know, few years ago, Bottleneck. So I actually I've dabbled in reading that a bit. It's one of those things that's sitting next to my bed that I open up once in a while.
Didn't Cadden pass away? Is that
I don't know.
look like that? But the simple answer is overshoot is the primary predicament. It is, pretty succinct way of describing what we are experiencing. And so I think Rob is right. It's sort of like a foundation for everything that we explore. Maybe we can make it more explicit, as a concept. Although I do think we have spoken about it.
Yeah. Thanks for that question, and definitely encourage you to ask us whatever you want. I wanted to get to a question that I got ahead of time from one of our listeners who says, the Northwest's potlatch cultures were among the most egalitarian human societies ever to exist, featuring public ceremonies specifically intended to result in more equal sharing of bounty. Western civilized culture is undoubtedly the most unequal, almost certainly because of cheap fossil fuels. It says, I fear for the fate of human society in a post-carbon era if we hold on to our current selfishness, acquisitiveness, and inequality. We would maybe even return to a feudal way of life, or worse if we did that. So the question is, in preparing for a post-carbon future, what steps could we take to instill more egalitarianism in human culture? Was this, how would we go about doing that? And I think that's a really good question. And it's one that if you listen to, I don't know our episode numbers by heart, but one of the ones that we've done this season, we basically punted on trying to answer that question. We were just talking about how as the world has to relocalize, I guess this was in the episode about self-domestication, actually, in our cooperativeness, because we were trying to figure out if we sort of do the opposite of globalizing and we relocalize our economies and we lead kind of more bioregionally, how do we do that without basically beating the hell out of each other? And how do we retain a level of cooperativeness? And I don't think we had satisfactory answers. So it's like a key question that really needs more exploration. And
Well, I think there's also different scales that we're talking about. So if you're going to have some kind of stable or local agrarian base, maybe a society, I think within that society, in order for it to work, you're going to have tremendous cooperation and be fairly egalitarian. The question becomes what happens between you and the neighboring society, and that's where I think we were punting. So that's sort of my worry. Like, do we get back to these sort of fiefdoms, sort of the theme we had, like where with the Argentine ants, where they curtail their own expansion because they're kind of have pitched battles and territories.
yeah.
I think there are no simple answers to this, and I think we also have to be careful about romanticizing, either past cultures or indigenous societies now. It seems pretty clear to me that there is something particularly about the European mindset that predates fossil fuels, which I think we'll be getting into more in this season, and also, when we're talking about these moments, in history next season,
Yeah.
that is probably, if we think of humans as having both this selfish and altruistic gene, or different ways that people talk about it, if we have both of those things in us, we certainly, in kind of the European mindset, ratcheted up one and favor that over the other. But those exist within us, the competition and the cooperation. These are qualities that we have, and I think it raises all kinds of really, really tricky ethical questions that few of us who are worried about the fate of humanity are even willing to talk about, let alone the rest of society. So, for example, some of the folks listening are familiar with David Fleming's work. David was definitely part of kind of our tribe. He's passed away years ago, but posthumously, a couple of books of his were published. One is called Surviving the Future, and Dave was actually a conservative, and he sort of advocated for homogeneous relocalization, like shared culture, and that raises all kinds of questions. But you could see an argument to say, when you have things very strongly in common, that creates more cohesion than if you don't have those things in common. So how we balance that and wrestle with that, I think we have to be honest about. And PCI just did a webinar looking at political polarization and where that comes from. And one of the guests that we had on, the panelists, who's a psychologist and studies behavior, was talking about the fact that tribalism is very, very, I don't know, hardwired, but it is, deeply wired within us. But there are ways of actually taking that, not saying we're going to turn that part of us off, but taking that and saying we're going to actually find ourselves as part of a tribe with other people based upon these other values. Do you know what I mean? So that's my biggest hope, is that we, without being kumbaya about it, we figure out that we have more in common than we don't. Do you know what I mean? Even if we're living in different places and we have to figure out how to balance the sharing of resources.
Yeah, and that idea of having something in common, and your previous point about sort of the European cultures that have gone on the colonizing rampage, came up recently when I was interviewing Tyson Yunkaporta, who wrote this book, Sand Talk: How Indigenous Thinking Can Save the World. He'll be the guest in an upcoming episode. He's Aboriginal Australian, and one of the, I don't want to go deep into anything that he was discussing, but one of the points in his book that struck me, he talked about, how the British have sailed out all over the world and colonized so many places, but the fact that they themselves suffered from colonialization, prior to them taking on that behavior, it just sort of hit me. Like I didn't really, maybe I'm simplistic, but I hadn't really thought like that. I had thought, the British are responsible for so much of this behavior, when they themselves were victims of it as well. If you stop and think for a little bit, of course that's true. And
I want to we've got some great other questions here, but last thought on this, Sherry Mitchell, who I interviewed and we actually, I think, put out on the Crazy Town feed last year, talked about this story of exploitation and competition going back thousands of years, and pointed to when women became basically objects of, in a sense, trade, as maybe a source. So it goes way, 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 way back.
Yeah.
And it's something that we're gonna have to contend with.
Yeah.
I love this question from Carla. Can we get to that one?
Yeah. So yeah, why don't you go ahead and read it, since you're
Okay.
looking at it.
Hey, this is Carla from Warren County, North Carolina, birthplace of the environmental justice movement. I enjoyed the recent episode about death over dinner. I would love to work with you or others on a similar discussion guide and framing for having conversations about the climate crisis and the urgent changes we need to make as a society. I think people don't know how to talk about it, but with support, many more people would. So
Of
I just have
course
to
you love this question.
Yeah.
This is your baby.
Well, so for years I've been talking about, I did Death Over Dinner, I don't even know how many years ago. And after that, I've been talking to many people, hoping somebody would pick up this idea and actually run with it, about doing a Doom Over Dinner thing. In fact, we had conversations with Kathleen Dean Moore about that. I don't know if you remember that, Rob,
Yeah.
but because I agree with you, I think that having an opportunity to have these kind of taboo conversations with other people wrestling with these things, I think would be deeply relieving for people, because they oftentimes don't feel like they can talk about it. You know what I mean? Or they're so, because it's so present for them, all they do is talk about it, you know, and it's not like there's like a healthy balance there. So I've wanted for a long time to sort of take that model and do a Doom Over Dinner kind of thing. Maybe we call it something different. It doesn't matter. But so I think it'd be great to do. I actually had some conversations with people about how to potentially do that. And one of the things that I was warned about from somebody who organizes these deep conversations, something called the Council for the Uncertain Human Future, where they would bring people together over the course of days to have these conversations, was if you just do one dinner with people and they're together for a few hours and you raise these issues, if you're not there to support them, you know, afterwards, you may be doing more harm than good. So that's been one of the points of hesitation, I think, is just trying to think about, is there a way we could support that but not leave people hanging afterwards? Because I do think it opens up a lot of vulnerability for people. So
Yeah.
So love the idea, love to figure out a way to do that. I think there's probably more thinking that needs to be done to do it in a responsible way.
Maybe you
but I
start
think
with
there's a
brunch and then you
you're
have
just
dinner.
there forever.
Well,
Mhm.
now that
going.
we're buddies with Michael Hebb too, maybe we could get in partnership with him and you know, figure out some best practices too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, thanks for that. Here we have another question from Deb. It says, do you feel like you are preaching to the choir with this podcast, or do you have a sense that you are changing minds? Do you have a sense of who your audience is in terms of their demographics and distribution? She says she's very much in the choir and wonders who else is out there listening. We don't have a lot of like really awesome stats that we can figure out our demographics. We've gotten a little bit from the surveys we've put out. The sense is that it's been mostly choir. Now, we structured the show with the intent of having it be kind of easier for somebody who's new to these topics to come in and actually feel like they're joining a conversation that they would want to be a part of. So that's sort of our whole shtick. And we at least have some anecdotal evidence that we've gotten some of that. Like one of my favorites was I was driving, this is months and months ago, I was driving my stepdaughter and her friend over to their house. And at the time they were in 8th grade. And her friend revealed that she really likes listening to our podcast. And I was like, oh, really? When do you listen? And then she said, well, sometimes when school gets boring, I'll listen to it, you know, because she was doing remote school. And so I was like, well, that might not be the best time, but it was pretty cool that an 8th grader was into it and thought, you know, was getting something out of it. And we just yesterday even found out that we've been getting some audience that skews younger, kind of in the 18 to 24 range. So to me, that's exciting. But I think the reality is that the people that find us tend to be people that are looking for this sort of information. So we'll have an action item for anybody who's still left on this call here in a few minutes at the end to go out to iTunes and rate and review us, because that's one of the ways that more people can find us.
Yeah. And we also did very intentionally set out to do a podcast that part of the purpose was to be there for a community of people who feel like we do, and we very much had an audience in mind of people like us who struggle with feeling like they're crazy in a crazy world, and we didn't want to just create something that was all geared towards a new audience who wasn't deeply steeped into these things. It's an interesting balance, and we've been trying to experiment with ways of reaching new audiences, but word of mouth certainly is the most useful thing I think we found.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for that question. The next one: any documentary films you can recommend for showing Crazy Town can recover its sanity? That's a tough one. I will throw a little plug for one of the documentaries that helped feed into the terror management theory episode, and it's in the episode notes for that show. So if you go to our website, postcarbon.org/crazytown, and find the denial of death episode, click on that, scroll to the show notes, you can find a link to this documentary. It's freely available on YouTube, and it was a lot of the theory, the terror management theory, and interviewing the professors who came up with it. And it was a really pretty good production quality documentary, but and it has some thoughts, on how to deal with death anxiety, which would be one of the do the opposite types of routes. But do you guys have other documentaries that unfortunately, some of the documentaries that are springing to mind for me are ones that we kind of panned rather than ones that were like, yes, this is what people need to see?
I have to think about that, because the way I read this question is, there are a lot of great documentaries that are inspiring of things that people are doing, whether it's food system based or other things.
Yeah, it wasn't Richard Heinberg was in one recently, right?
Once you know, are you talking about that one or a different one? Yeah, that was broader. So that was really around, and that film is coming out, by the way, folks. It was done by a French filmmaker who worked for a number of years on this, and Richard's one of the sort of main people profiled in it, along with a woman who I highly recommend people check out. Her name is Suzanne Moser, Moser, who's just a wonderful human being, and we've actually had on a webinar in the past. But I have a hard time thinking about a documentary showing how we can recover our sanity. Like, to me, I see that as a broader societal one. And when has a society ever recovered its sanity when it's become insane?
Yeah, that's kind of a follow. Or do you think we were ever sane?
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't see that.
Yeah,
I think the hope lies really in the smaller scale, individual, community based, that kind of thing. Like, I always found the film about Cuba, that was
The
done,
Power of Community.
Power of Community, years ago.
Yeah, it's a pretty old one.
I wish it was kind of remade and touched up, but I've always found that very inspiring, and that might be the first one that comes to my mind. People can find that for free on YouTube, The Power of Community.
Well, we are running out of time, and I want to take another couple minutes to thank people. Just before getting to that, Martin has a question about, could we discuss the deep adaptation movement? I just want to point out that our sister podcast, What Could Possibly Go Right, which is, you can find that at resilience.org. Vicki Robin actually interviewed Jim Bendel for, I think, the most recent episode, who is sort of the founder of that movement. So definitely check that out. And yeah, we could, we could certainly think about discussing that as well.
Yeah, I would just say quickly, Martin, and this is my personal opinion, I have mixed feelings. So I think it is an interesting thing to think about. So yeah, we should without necessarily going at deep adaptation specifically. I'm more interested in thinking about communities of support and how people balance hope and fatalism, I guess.
Mhm.
And also real quickly, Karen, your question about a vision for regional food preservation and feeding people. Definitely check out Jason's report, The Future is Rural. I mean, it's pretty big picture, but he has a really nice model in there, actually for the Corvallis area, sort of looking at how do you plan to feed
But I kind of set it up so that you could take it and put it somewhere else and easily adjust. So there's actually a spreadsheet that you can download on postcarbon.org, and then I explain in the report how you would go about adapting it to your area. So yeah, there's a Chris Mage has a new book out, Small Farm Future. I think that's an interesting look at it from more of a sociological perspective.
Yeah. So, all right, this is I mean, it's so hard to express how excited we are that folks actually like the program, even like it to the point that you will support us financially and enable us to have Melody on. We're really excited about season 3. It seems to be going pretty well so far. And, you know, hey, Jason Asher, I really enjoy working with you. All the people in the background too. Des is helping us run this webinar right now. Amy and Clara help us with outreach. We've got incredible artwork from Anya Steyer. We've got other volunteer help, as I said, from Alana. We've got Chase Robinson has helped us with some fundraising. It's just, yeah, I really heartfelt thanks to all of them and to all of our listeners, and for you for participating in this webinar. It's a lot of fun for us to do, and yeah, just.
And you, Rob, like
Thanks.
you hold all that together. Like I couldn't have listed all those names off like you did. So he's kind of the manager of the whole thing, I feel like. So that's
Rob works very hard
management.
behind the scenes.
Yes, management is important. Rob's a good one at that.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you know, you talked earlier a little bit, Jason, about sort of recording day, but a lot of research goes into each episode, and that's on kind of all 3 of us, you know, sharing resources, trying to read up, trying to make ourselves appear at least smart and with it when it comes to covering some of the things we cover. And like we've said, some of it's brand new. Like I didn't know, like you said, Jason, you didn't know about terror management theory. I didn't either. And it was fascinating to dive into that, you know, even if we couldn't go as deep as we wanted to. But we'll keep churning out these episodes and try to figure out what it is our listeners want. And we appreciate you joining us, asking great questions and supporting the show. So thanks so much. And we will hopefully continue to see you on the mean streets of Crazy Town.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
showing up,
all.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much.